Team Fortress 2 is an objective-based shooter. This means that while it is an FPS and killing the enemy players is fun, getting a lot of kills doesn't actually mean you're going to win. Either way, the objective in objective-based is on a map-by-map or game-mode-by-game mode basis. On the face of it, King of the Hill is the most simple game mode, as there's really only one main focus of each map: the control point. I mean, that's the objective. There it is. Right there. Unfortunately, as with most things, reality is a bit more complicated. For most King of the Hill maps, the objective is to capture and hold onto the control point for a total of 3 minutes, while preventing the enemy team from doing the same. That sounds incredibly simple, but we've already opened things up a bit more than before. We no longer have one objective, we have two. The first objective is to capture the control point, and the second is to hold on to it. These are two incredibly different objectives in terms of both gameplay and mindset. In order to capture the control point, you need to make sure there are no enemies on the point already. Then, have someone from your team stand on it for long enough to capture it without the enemy team either killing them or just retouching the point. And then, just like that, we've already expanded it into 3 more objectives. Clear the point, stand on it, protect it while you stand on it. The further you zoom in, the more details you'll get. And if we wanted to, we could dig even further and further into every minute detail. And these details also shift and blend and morph based on map, class, team composition, mood, etc., etc. As an example, a scout is much more likely to be focused on the point than a spy is, and yet each of these classes have so much nuance to every move. Each section of each map could easily be broken down and analyzed in great detail if we wanted to just sit here a while. Here's a 43-minute video specifically on how to play Pyro, specifically on the map Swiftwater, specifically in Highlander. Fuck it, here's a 5-hour playlist on how to do one specific trick stab as Spy. The coastline paradox is a famous example of something similar. It basically states that the smaller the unit of measurement for a coastline is, the longer that coastline is. The example that Wikipedia gives is with Great Britain. If the coastline of Great Britain is measured using the units of 100 kilometers long, then the length of the coastline is approximately 2,800 kilometers. With 50 kilometer long units, the total length is approximately 3,400 kilometers long, approximately 600 kilometers longer. This same thing applies to TF2. The closer you look, the more details you'll see. However, conversely, the further back you step, the more of the big picture you'll see. You can't capture the point if you don't have a computer, right? So at the very least, the primary objective that needs to be cleared before even being able to capture the point at all is a computer that can play TF2, as well as the electricity to keep it running. But TF2 can't play itself, so you as a person also need a source of air, food, water, and shelter. And a good amount of sleep isn't a bad idea, honestly. This is the bare minimum. Each of those could be broken down even further as well, just like the in-game objectives. An easy example is that in order to have food, you need to be able to, afford food. This requires money of some accepted denomination, a caregiver or provider of some sort, or something that can be given in exchange. While not always the case, those generally require your age to be either really young or really old for a caregiver, or more commonly, just having a job. Having a job requires you to be somewhere where you can get a job, which requires a healthy local job market, which requires a healthy economy. And then, even when you have a job, unless it's remote work, you need to be able to get to that job, which requires some form of transportation, a path to get there, and the time to commute. It's all a little overwhelming, isn't it? Something that feels so incredibly simple can quickly expand and web out into hundreds of things. Every single one of those has to go perfectly for this event to take place at all, let alone succeed. But even then, all of that ignores the consequences of such an action. Let's just say, as an example, you're playing King of the Hill, and then you and your team successfully capture the point. Now what? Yes, you've now successfully captured the point, but that's nowhere near the end of things. Now the enemy team is going to try and capture the point, and you have to stop them from doing that. Things do not simply cease to exist once you're done with them. So, not only do you have to take into account every element of setup for an action, you need to be aware of every element of fallout to an action. I could go to the kitchen right now and eat dinner, but in order to do that I would have to first make myself dinner, with everything that entails, and then after, once I'm done eating, I then have to clean my dishes. Some days, just eating at all can be extremely difficult. Having to work before I can even do the difficult task, and then having to work even more after, often makes it feel almost impossible. There's ways to help, and I know there are ways to help. I've set alarms and reminders, I make sure to save leftovers so I can reheat them easily, and I have a dishwasher at my new place, so that's nice. There's meal prep, which takes a lot of time, and takeout food, which can really add up and cost quickly. And, like, I could spend an hour meal prepping every week, or I could finally get my life together for once. I could spend that time working out like I've been saying I would for 5 years now. I could study anatomy, or I could learn to improve my proportions when I draw. I could spend that hour finally actually becoming a good artist for a change. I could spend money on takeout, or I could donate to charity, or I could invest in a portfolio, or I could buy a nice gift for a loved one, or I could save it up, or I could support a cause, or I could, and I can't just not do the dishes after, right? Like there's mold and there's cleanliness, but I don't live alone, and like, I'm already a failed gifted kid, a failed pro gamer, a failed artist, a failed comedian, a failed friend, and I'm a failure so many times over in my own eyes. I don't think I could survive being a failure in theirs too. I've been spending a lot of time looking around the local graveyard. I've walked the whole thing several times at this point. It's just easier to think there. I don't know, maybe that's morbid. One day, I saw what looked like a mother grabbing a handful of dirt from the pile, and then, slowly and hesitantly, tossing it 6 feet down. I've been to my fair share of funerals, but it was always older family, and it was expected, and it made me think of my own mom. I've been walking past the bodies of hundreds of former loved ones. Each have led to multiple generations since, and came from multiple generations prior. The land itself was home to people for hundreds of generations before anyone in my family tree even knew it existed. It really made me back up and take a wider look at things. How things work on an even wider timeline. I mean, like, yes, eating requires cooking, which requires ingredients, which requires grocery shopping, but that requires shelf stockers, cashiers, delivery drivers, farmers, someone to set up a store, many generations of food scientists, the invention of language, and someone thousands of years ago eating a mysterious blob on the ground and going, "Wow, that's really good." Everyone in this graveyard everyone watching, everybody who isn't. They're all a member of that chain, and every one of those people had to do everything perfectly, exactly as they did. The butterfly effect suggests that something as small as a butterfly flapping its wings could adjust the winds in just the right way to cause a gust to blow all the way around the world. Even simple actions ripple out in amazing ways, and if something as small as a butterfly can affect how the entire world feels the wind, imagine what you could do. You are the culmination of all of those that came before you, and the base of all of those that will come after. Everyone that has ever existed has led up to you, and everyone that will ever exist will be affected by you. And this extends so much further than you could ever imagine. From the Civil War and the samurai, to the long-lost dynasties, to the ancient cultures, to the original humans 300,000 years ago, even back to the Jurassic or Precambrian periods. Fuck it. Hell. 14 billion years ago, the Big Bang sent stardust everywhere, and eventually it smashed together in just the right way to create the sun, the earth, the moon, and then eventually you. Now, I have no idea what I'm doing. Honestly, I've basically been winging every aspect of my life since high school, and I don't have any real plans for the future other than who I would like to see in it. And honestly, with how things are right now, it's hard to feel like I should even be making plans at all. I'm trying so hard, but it almost feels impossible to be optimistic. But if everything is going to be shit, and everything is going to be so goddamn hard all the time, then the least I could do is to try and leave things better than I found them. Hopefully, this video has left you better than when you found it. Please don't unsubscribe.